and this document won't go away. I understand it's a bad time to be talking about it, but maybe it is a good time to be talking about it as far as whether it may be something to do that you want to do in the future, because there's going to be, we need to put some more work into it, but it might be something for a future board to consider before things start ramping up again, so you can actually collect something and do some of these projects.
No, I understand that. And in terms of the state responsibility areas, in terms of the roads, the highways, I understand your frustration, because you and I have talked about it in the past, about Caltrans' lack of desire to improve anything along 101 and in Talmadge Road for that matter as well. But I still subscribe to the belief it's their road, and that's part of why we all pay the state taxes that they seem to keep from us in local government all the time. They can pony up and make the improvements that need to be made. They don't have any problem doing it in LA and San Francisco and the Bay Area. They can help us out of here, and that's where our state legislators need to step up to the plate and demand it. They get themselves into positions of power, they need to start using it to our benefit around here too. And in terms of the sales tax, to me, that's a little more of an equitable way of approaching it, because those that are actually traveling in here, whether they're residents of this county or elsewhere, that are coming in here and using the infrastructure, then will pay their portion of it, either through the fuel that they stop off the freeway to buy or the goods that they purchase as well. And I know that's tough to get through. That 2/3 vote's a tough ceiling to break, but to me, that's a little more equitable than this approach. But I do, again, thank you for all the work that went into this. I don't misunderstand my frustrations with it. And you're right, I'd probably say no even in the good times.
I think Mr. Dow's been around a while. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of comments here. Phil and I had talked several months ago about a joint meeting between the City Council and the Board of Supervisors. I'd still like to encourage that next year. As staff, when we go through and we look at these projects, we don't want there to be any surprises to the board, and sometimes we're engaging on projects, for instance, traffic lights on Perkins and on Goby, and those are active projects, and we have some involvement. We're working with the city. They're good projects. We're working in Caltrans. But it would be nice to have a priority list that everybody agrees on what's out there and what order the project's going to go. So I'd like to encourage the board to consider for next year that we do get together with the City Council in a joint meeting to work out those various kinds of things. And I would assume, Phil, what we're talking about here, we're really talking about total project costs. And in every project, there is a portion that's borne by the developer, and there is a portion that's borne by the local citizens. And one of the things I hear all the time is, well, the developer should pay for all of these improvements. Developers are only responsible for their fair share of the traffic that they generate. And I think that's important to remember when we have these kinds of discussions. And then my final comment or question to Phil is, when we get around to setting the fees, and of course we argue over, how many trip generations do you get out of a daycare center versus a dentist and so forth, are you going to help us with and through that process with Julie, or how will that part of the process work?
Well, I have a book in my office that thick from the Institute of Transportation Engineers that has chip generation rates for just about anything you can think of, and that thing's about 8 years old. I'm sure it's about that thick by now, but it's fairly standard of what these things are, and there's hundreds of entities around this state alone that have already adopted these fees, and it's not that difficult of a process coming up with an ordinance that identifies all these specific uses. And certainly we would probably hook up with a consultant to guide us through some of these things, but I think the biggest part of the effort is right here. It's complete.
I would agree, but if you've ever sat through the 300 daycare providers in a boardroom saying that they don't generate the number of trips that your consultant says,
Yeah.
I think that's a consideration you have to have.
Okay. I'm sorry, Supervisor Pinches.
Just a disclaimer, this impact fee through MCOG the process was initiated and funded before Supervisor Colfax and me were on MCOG.
Duly noted disclaimer.
I don't really like my name associated with the word fee.
I'm sorry, your fingerprints are duly
Okay, we can
noted.
call it a tax again, I guess.
Okay, well, I do appreciate the presentation, and I'm sure when it comes back at some future date for a final massaging or modification, a certain ex-supervisor might be there to make some comments. So,
Good. Again, MCOG staff will be available to facilitate anything we may be asked to do on behalf of the county and the city. Thank you.
thank you very much.
In the meantime, is our building department ramping up for this 5.5 million square foot of building that's gonna happen here?
I do believe you're out of order, Supervisor.
About time you said that.
Okay, we do have a couple of items we need to take up, and I'll ask for input from the board. We do have item 8B, this is a discussion on AB 32, the off-road truck air toxic control measure.